This is an iPhone 16 Pro, and is it really worth the upgrade? Well, that's pretty obvious. Depends on which of previous models you have. But I can say right away, you don't need to upgrade every year. Simply upgrade every 2-3 years instead, because the iPhone 16 Pro is essentially just a slightly improved version of the 15 Pro. To the question of who should upgrade to it and whether it's worth upgrading, let me answer right away. There's no point in switching from the 15 Pro at all. Very minor changes. If you get 14 Pro, it's worth thinking, since it has a USB-C, a titanium finish, Apple lock, 120 frames per second for video, new buttons, 2 of them. If you get 13 Pro or even 12 Pro, it's even better because of features like 120Hz, always on display, dynamic island, all the features I've just talked. There are plenty of reasons to upgrade, and yeah, you're definitely gonna enjoy it. So you got it. But now let's go through step by step. In the box, there's nothing interesting included anymore. You get a new packaging for the USB-C cable. It's not wrapped as round as it used to. Even the cable is oval now. No respect for users. just kidding. It's packed kind of sick. Thanks for the cable, but I feel like they're gonna take away the cable as well in the future. So now there are no stickers like at all. There used to be 2, then 1, and now not at all. I mean, nobody needs them, but it's sad. And there's no SIM ejector tool, because here in the US, iPhones come with only eSIM. Alright, this is my iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I've been using happily for a long time without any problems. Even the battery health is still pretty fresh. 10 months actively using and still 97%. And the #1 important reason for me to upgrade was, or you could call it a downgrade, I really wanted a smaller size. The Pro Max this year got even especially bigger at 6.9 inches. And I think people will split into 2 camps. Some will enjoy having such a big phone, while others will switch to the smaller Pro since the screen size is now sufficient. And you know, the difference in dimensions is very noticeable. Even though the 16 Pro increased by 0.2 inches after using this 15 Pro Max, the smaller one fits perfectly in the hand. Just my personal opinion. I can reach everything with my fingers, it's great lightweight, and overall just a compact Pro smartphone. It kind of reminds me of my old little trusty 13 mini, but the dream would be an iPhone 16 Pro mini in titanium. That would be so sweet. Alright, but what's new this time? Regarding the design, firstly, the thickness hasn't changed at all. It's still 8.25mm, but it became heavier by 12 grams. The 16 Pro Max also got slightly heavier by tiny 6 grams. You'll hardly notice that. There are 4 iPhone Pro boring colors as usual, and I know several people who went with the regular iPhone 16 just because of the color. By the way, teal and ultramarine colors look pretty dope actually. And why no bright colors for the Pro phones? I don't know. Samsung has at least 3 bright colors for the S24. Anyway, they replaced the blue titanium with the desert titanium. And I bet this desert titanium will be the most sold color this year, simply because it's a new color. People want new colors. But nevertheless, I went with the classic black color. To me, it looks just clean, streaked, and crispy. Alright, next about 45 watt and fast charging. I don't actually know the exact speed, but of course I tested it. Of course, with the fast charger, I got this 100 Anker charger brick. And what do we got? The 16 Pro peaks at 25 watt for like just half minute, and on average it consumes about 20 watts. I even drained the battery on purpose, so there's no any kind of fast charging. However, MagSafe can now deliver 25 watts, which makes it comparable to wired charging. In somewhere 30-35 minutes, you can charge the phone from 0 to 50%, which is not bad. By the way, the USB-C is still 3.2 Gen 2, which means up to 10 gigabits per second. Also, we get now Wi-Fi 7, which is a welcome addition. More, Apple claims iPhone 16 Pros got new 4 studio quality mics for higher quality audio recording. These new mics enable creative sound editing with the new audio mix feature. There are 3 voice options. The in-frame mix isolates the voice of the person. Studio mix gives the effect of recording in a professional studio. And cinematic mix handles voices with the vocal track positioned in the front. And a little bit of environment noises in the surround. Alright, this is the right spot with ambient environment noise around to test out the audio quality. I'm gonna be switching back and forth between these 3 voice options. I like the weather today. It's sunny. Alright, this is the right spot with ambient environment noise around to test out the audio quality. I'm gonna be switching back and forth between these 3 voice options. I like the weather today. It's sunny, got some warm white cars are passing by, everybody minding their own business. Let me know in the comments what do you think of these voice options. To me, nothing crazy. Also, in the voice memos app, now you can layer another one on top of an existing recording. The most significant update is definitely the battery life, which has well improved. The iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max have batteries with a steel body. The capacity increased by nearly 9.5% in the Pro version and 6% in the Pro Max compared to the previous generation. But we know that these small numbers mean nothing. The battery life of 46 mAh under iOS will be longer than some of Android with 6000 mAh. And I guess the screen sizes on the Pro models were increased specifically to place a larger battery. This was necessary because of the upcoming iPhone 17s will likely, just a prediction, will likely have the power-hungry M1 chip or something like that. Plus, with the 16 Pro running iOS 18, which slows down the processing during idle, that's where the improved battery life comes from. Because my iPhone 15 Pro Max, after the update to iOS 18, started holding its battery life really well. And yeah, from my feeling, the 16 Pro lasts roughly almost the same as the 15 Pro Max. It seems like the more energy-efficient A18 Pro chip combined with the larger battery provides a significant boost in battery life. So is it not enough reason to upgrade? So, the display, everything is great across the board. XDR OLED, 120Hz, HDR True Tone, the same nits brightness, and all the features typical of the 15 Pro models. It's absolutely the same, but the screen itself has grown to 6.3 inches, while the 16 Pro Max is now 6.9 inches. By the way, we have the thinnest bezels in the world right now. Here's the 15 Pro Max, and here's the new 16 Pro. So obviously there's a difference. 16 Pro should have noticeably thinner bezels, but I don't know, looks like not a huge difference. Other than that, still there are some tiny differences between these displays exist. And it's not just about the size. Now the minimum brightness of the 16 Pro is 1 nit, but on the 15 Pros, Apple didn't really specify the minimum brightness, but in real light it is 1.9 nits. So it's not something like mind-blowing improvement. And ultimately in the dark, the 16 Pro is a tiny bit dimmer, but you're barely gonna see the difference. We've also got the latest generation ceramic shield front, and unfortunately we don't have anti-reflective coating on the display. The resolution has only slightly changed to maintain a pixel density of 460 pixels per inch on the larger screen, but other than that, both displays are very sharp and great. So if you didn't get anything particularly new with the design and display, maybe there will be some significant leap in performance. Here's Geekbench 6, almost 2800 for the iPhone 15 Pro Max in single core, and 3400 for the 16 Pro. So the 16 Pro is indeed more powerful. The difference in multi-core is huge as well. However, as a 15 Pro Max user over the last few months, I haven't noticed any performance issues. I mean, the performance of this is more than enough. On the other hand, the 16 Pro is more powerful, and simply speaking, it'll complete the same tasks with less effort because it's more capable. But let's be real, most of the times we use our phones, we scroll through social media feeds and occasionally shoot some random videos back and forth. So overall, we don't push it with heavy tasks. Both have 8 gigs of RAM, and the rest architecturally, the A17 Pro and A18 Pro are very similar. 6-core CPU, 4 of them efficiency, and 2 performance cores. 6-core GPU and 16-core neural engine. Because Apple Intelligence and all those AI features are the main selling points for the 16 Pro. But there's a catch. It wasn't available at launch, meaning the smartphone's main selling feature will be available later. This is officially the most unfinished iPhone in Apple's history. And by the way, Apple Intelligence will be also available on 15 Pro and Pro Max. So the lineup now is quite specific. It's clear they just removed the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max from sales, since they're too good and would eat the sales of the 16 Pro versions, but the regular iPhone 16 and 16 Plus seem unable to replace the 15 and 15 Plus, which you can still purchase, as well as even the iPhone 14 with Lightning is still available. Let's say if you're a retro enthusiast and you want the option to charge with Lightning. You know what's really funny? With all these nuances, the regular iPhone 16 gets lost in the shadow of the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. Let me explain why. If we compare them, the non-Pro 16 will be worse in every aspect. Bend your fingers. No titanium finish, only 2 cameras as well as no LiDAR scanner. Display is worse, just 60 Hz, smaller battery, slower USB-C, everything is old except for that new camera button on the right edge. If you don't need that button, just get a 15 Pro and just enjoy it. And talking about this new weird camera control. So the only visual difference of the new iPhones from the previous generation is this new physical camera control button with a touch surface and haptic feedback located on the right side edge. There are 3 types of interactions with the button: full press, light press, and swipe. We use it to launch the camera and control it. It's a very questionable feature that requires some getting used to, and they didn't want to call it a button for whatever reason. Now let's look at how many options we have to launch the camera. Camera control 1. On the lock screen we click here 2, as well as if we swipe left 3. Action button 4. Double tap on the backside 5. With the shortcut 6. Or just simply unlock the phone and tap on the camera app 7. What else do I have left? Bunch of ways to launch the camera app. Crazy. So you press it and the camera app opens. Another press takes the photo. If you press and hold, it starts video recording, which stops when you release the button. A light press opens the last camera tool, and a swipe lets you change that setting. You can access the full tools menu with either 2 light press or 1 light press followed by a swipe along the strip. There are 6 tools you might slide through: exposure, aperture, zoom. Personally, I find the standard zoom dial much more convenient than the button. The styles are various presets options, but the standard profile is weirdly placed somewhere in the middle, not at the beginning. And the tones. This allows you to work with the tone. And after all, there is one question. I really don't understand why I need this, because all the same functions are actually easier to access on the display. I don't need a special button for that, come on guys, seriously. And it feels like it's the function for the sake of function. I guess there was nothing to improve, so they decided to add a button and attach functions. And you know what, for 10 years we've been moving away from buttons to touchscreens, but all new is well forgotten old, and soon we'll be back to dials and buttons, which they'll present as a breakthrough. But if you are one of those who enjoys this camera control, you can customize it, but currently not by much. In the settings, to avoid accidental launching the camera, especially for left-handed users, you can change it to a double tap. There's also a limited selection of what can be launched: code scanner, magnifier, and interestingly, I can choose Instagram. It seems like more and more third-party developers will get an API to integrate the button functionalities into their apps. In the accessibility settings, under camera control, you can adjust the press strength, lighter by default or stronger, as well as the double light press speed. And what I'm especially amazed of is that why this button primarily controls just the camera. It would be such an incredible new way to interact with the phone. Just imagine, we know this button is touch sensitive to all those up and down swipes, and it would be amazing if I could scroll through Safari or Instagram feed or whatever with this control. That would be nuts, just a no-brainer feature. But unfortunately not yet, and I guess in the future Apple might add some AI functions to this button. So overall, the placement of the button is not great either. In vertical position, it's more convenient for gripping to operate using the display. And moreover, when you press the button to take a picture, there's a slight shake. So the button is kind of inconvenient. They'll probably be polishing it for a year or 2, and then after a few generations of iPhones, they'll get rid of it just like they did with the 3D touch layer under the display, claiming it just takes up a space. So cameras, last year the 15 Pro had just a 3x optical zoom, but this year we finally have a 5x zoom on both the Pro and Pro Max. And in general, both devices take photos that are very similar. I don't see here significant difference, at least not a noticeable boost in picture quality. Both perform quite well, although they have a common issue of trying to pull up the shadows, when shadows should remain like shadows. Here's some videos, everything kind of the same. I could barely see the difference between the two. However, where should be a difference is in the ultra-wide camera. The 15 Pros has a 12 megapixel sensor, while the 16 Pros has a 48 megapixel. But still, it takes 12 megapixel photos until you switch to RAW or HEIF, and then you'll get a 48 megapixel photos from the ultra-wide camera. And by the way, the new cameras have anti-reflecting coating to help with annoying glare, but as you see, it doesn't help, same results, just okay. And the macro. 15 Pros have the macro as well, but in the 16 Pro you can get a bit closer to the subject. Plus, you might now capture 48 megapixel close-ups using an ultra-wide-angle camera. That's why the 16 Pro and Pro Max should be a bit better in that regard. On the 16 Pro, the photo styles have been improved. First, we got various presets that are actually quite useful. But the most important thing is that we can now adjust contrast, color, and saturation ourselves using this square, where we can move the point from different angles to achieve the desired effect. Of course, there are plenty of photo editors out there, but having these editing tools built into the camera app is great. Cinematic mode is still in 4K at 30 FPS. Additionally, a difference in terms of cameras is that the 16 Pros can shoot 4K 120 frames per second, which the 15 Pros cannot do. As a result, our slow motion videos on the 16 Pro will be much crispier and more impressive, simply because they're recorded in 4K. And by the way, you might slow down your footage right after when you took the video. And in general, 120 frames per second are needed by only a few, if not at all. All these features like camera button 4K 120, sound effects are available on Sony for decades. Revolution. So in the end, if you've forgotten, the battery tiny bit increase, the new camera button, I don't want to call it camera control, new ultra-wide camera, 120 frames for video, audio quality has improved a bit, this is it. Same display, just 0.2 inch increase. Yeah, the new chip. The main feature here is Apple Intelligence, which is not available at launch and will be available later on iOS 18.1. So if money totally doesn't matter, of course get it. It is better, but not by much. Nevertheless, if you are a glorious owner of an iPhone 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max, there is no any wise point in upgrading to the 16 Pros. Very minor changes. And essentially, every year it's the same thing. There is no reason to upgrade your device every time just because you won't feel any significant improvement. However, if you're transitioning from the iPhone 14 Pro, like I said in the beginning, yeah, might be. There is a USB-C, titanium finish, and Apple Lock 120 frames per second video recording, new buttons, not just one, two buttons. But if you're coming from the iPhone 13 Pro or even 12 Pro, it's even way better because you'll get first and foremost indeed better cameras, 120Hz, always on, dynamic island, USB-C, and all the new features that I've just told. The difference will be pretty noticeable and you're definitely gonna enjoy it. But if you have a non-Pro model like the regular 13, 14 or 15, then it makes sense to upgrade to the Pro versions because of 120Hz, 3 cameras, there's definitely a room for improvement. However, is there any sense to buy the 16 Pro or Pro Max if you can get a 15 Pro or Pro Max? They've become cheaper and can be found at tasty prices. They got all the main killer features and even Apple Intelligence will be supported. 16 Pro is not a new smartphone. It's more like the iPhone 15 Pro 2 or 15s Pro, but for some reason they named it a 16 Pro. I really wanted to be impressed, but I'm not. Very minor update. It seems like Apple has reached the point where iPhones are being sold so nice anyway, so there's no need for significant changes. But we gotta give a credit as of today in terms of design, exterior, and ergonomics. To me, this is the ideal. The new Pixel, by the way, has the same design. I really liked it. And I guess the most interesting stuff will come next year. According to rumors, there will be a thin iPhone 17 Air, a 48 megapixel front camera, a 48 megapixel telephoto camera, which means all the cameras will be 48 megapixels. It seems they'll come up with something new for this camera control and other features. So what do you think about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. That's all for now. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.